boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, attack helicopters, small yellow teddy bears, or however you may well identify. It's all valid here, of course, on our gender fluid and nondescript channel. Yes. Today, my guest is Austin. That's right, isn't it? Austin, yes, just like the car. Austin Martin. Very good. And what the history is that we were having a bit of an exchange on the old twat face, as you do. I have a persona over there where I like to be as abrasive and abusive as possible. It's just for clicks, really. It's just a bit of fun. And Austin said, "Oh, why don't we have a chat and an interview?" And I said, "Let's." So really, I have no idea what he's going to ask me, what it's about. But whatever, I'll answer questions as sensibly as I possibly can. Austin, all yours.
Appreciate it, Bart. Again, thank you for having me. And I've just been interested in nutrition and fitness in general. I'm not a professional, so again, this is just my personal interest. And I also come from a powerlifting background, transitioning into Olympic weightlifting.
Nice.
So my goal is to compete maybe sometime by July or September. And I just wanted to know if I could do anything to optimize maybe my diet or lifestyle pertaining to those goals. So I currently weigh around 130 pounds. And my weight class is 61 kilos. So I have about 5 pounds to gain, I believe. And my current diet has been, pretty disorganized, to say the least. Unfortunately, and shamefully, a lot of it's been fast food just because I'm on the go a lot. And, I'm always moving, working, and training. So oddly, I feel like I've seen passable results in terms of my weight to strength ratios. And, just because it's been working out for me with the fast food and stuff doesn't mean it's optimal. So I was just curious to know if you had any input on that and a little bit of a background for the structure of the diet. Really what I focus on more so is, are the macros. And I really try to focus on the protein primarily. I try to aim for about 100 grams per day. So after that, I don't really prioritize carbs or fats. For me, I just, eat usually what's available. But I also find that I tend to eat a lot more, I'd say, of my, protein in like steaks and chicken and stuff like that. So I was just curious, is there anything I can do timing wise, or even just adding, removing certain foods? I'm open to anything just to, do my own research as well.
Cool.
To optimize my.
Yeah. Okay. Diet wise, what I would say to you is the same thing I would say to any human being, because it doesn't really differ greatly between human beings as to what is optimal for you, irrespective of what it is you're trying to achieve pretty much in your health, fitness, sporting endeavors. I am an absolute and unshakable advocate for a 100% carnivorous diet, irrespective of sporting involvement. There are those that would tell you that you can't do well as a power athlete, as a lifting athlete, without consuming carbohydrates in your diet. They don't know what they're talking about. That is false. Unequivocally, definitely, without any question, that means false. You absolutely can do very, very well as a power athlete, as a lifting athlete, in either so-called powerlifting or Olympic lifting, without consuming a single carbohydrate in your diet ever. So let's get that out of the way. That said, if your diet is not currently 100% carnivore, what I suggest to a person, and you as well, because you are a person, are you not, is that you should change your diet from whatever it is to a 100% carnivore diet slowly over 6 to 8 weeks, at least. You should not change your diet markedly overnight under any circumstances, from anything to anything else. The reason for that is that will upset your microbiome, and that will cause you an inflammatory response. Very likely it will give you the shits as well. Very likely it will cause all sorts of problems that will interfere with your life in general, not just your training and your sporting performance going forward. So don't do that. Change your diet slowly, but get rid of plants and plant materials and things derived from plants. Get rid of starches, get rid of fiber. You don't need any of that whatsoever. Get rid of sugars, definitely. You don't need those. Everything you need to be fit, well, healthy, prosperous, and successful in sport and life in general, you will find in the muscle meat, not organs, muscle meat, and associated fat of large ruminant animals. That should be the basis of your diet, about 80%. The other 20%, you can eat other animals too. Pretty much. That's the dietary advice in a nutshell. Done in record time. Questions?
Yeah, so the sugar, all that makes sense to me. What are your thoughts on, like the sweeteners to reduce sugars from the diet, like artificial sweeteners? Yeah. And I am guilty of, sipping the occasional pre-workout, which has some sort of sweetener in it. I'm positive the pre-workout's probably not a healthy choice. But, and also your thoughts on that as well, if you have any.
No, you're quite right. You shouldn't be doing that. You don't need to take in anything pre-workout. Everything you need to fuel your workout is already with you on your body if you're eating a species-appropriate, species-specific diet. The energy that you need is in the form of fat, and the building blocks that you need are in the form of amino acids. So that's what you need. It's already there. You don't need to be eating or taking in anything, food or drink-wise, prior to a workout to fuel that workout. It's already fueled. Artificial sweeteners are potentially problematic from a number of standpoints, not least of which is that they can cause an insulin release issue, because your brain doesn't know the difference between something that tastes sweet, that is sugar, and something that tastes sweet, that is not. And it will respond to it in the same way, i.e. by releasing insulin. If you have not actually consumed some sugar, then that insulin will drag your blood sugar still lower than it was beforehand and will actually compromise your training rather than help. Plus, it will lead you towards the old, what they refer to as insulin resistance issue long term. It's no such thing, actually. It's just a construct, but it will lead you towards diabetes and other health concerns. Plus, many artificial sweeteners are thought to potentially contribute to one's likelihood of cancer development at some point. Whether or not they do is unestablished for sure, but given that they are completely unnecessary, why would you take any amount of risk, if there is any, whatsoever? You don't need that substance, so get it out of your life, I would suggest.
Absolutely. And so does that include even things like, let's say, just like black coffee? So I'll occasionally, try to just swap something out with black coffee. That's unnecessary as well.
Well, the coffee is a stimulant. It can cause you to feel more energetic, and it can cause you to perhaps apply more power to your workout than you otherwise would have done, potentially. However, it doesn't come without downsides. Coffee is a toxin. It's a plant alkaloid. It's an endocrine disruptor. It's, while it's a stimulant, it can also raise your blood pressure, which is not a good thing. And that can lead to all sorts of damage to your body in a long-term sense. There's not really any place in your diet for coffee either. You should probably get that gone from your life as well.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to sit and judge you, of course, but I'm just telling you the facts.
No, and hey, I'm always open. You know more than this than I do. You are a professional. You went to school for this. You've taught things in university, so it makes sense.
Depending on who you believe, there are some people that claim I never did and I've made it all up. Well, good for them. They're wrong. My academic background is absolutely above reproach, but that's for another day. Carry on.
Each their own, yeah. So Pertaining to the blood pressure you mentioned with the caffeine, I've also read up on, blood pressure and, just powerlifting movements and just lifting heavy weights in general.
Yeah.
Some people saying it's not good for the heart. Is there any truth to that, or is there anything that, a young athlete should be worried about? Or
Yeah, I think that there is... The thing about physical fitness is that some physical fitness is indicated and is worthwhile and is useful in terms of both your ability to negotiate the world in some way, in a specific way, in the case of strength and power sports, specifically being fit for strength and power means that you have more strength and more power. Those things can be useful in negotiating everyday life in various circumstances to a certain point, beyond which one's physical preparation, one's training, the thing that stimulates that fitness, can be deleterious to their health long term. One of the things that powerlifters, so-called power, like I'm saying so-called powerlifting because powerlifting has nothing to do with power. Powerlifting should be called strength lifting.
Right, yeah.
Not powerlifting, because it's not power that determines your ability to undertake a power lift. It's your strength that determines that. The thing that determines your ability to do an Olympic lift is power. However, that was taken by powerlifting, so I guess they called it Olympic lifting instead. But Olympic lifting is actual powerlifting, and powerlifting is actually strength lifting, not power at all.
Funny how those work out.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But that's for another day. All right, so training for powerlifting, strength, is associated in some cases, depending on how much volume of training that person does, with a deleterious effect on their systemic blood pressure over time and in their vascular tone and in their ability to monitor and manage their own blood pressure. Yes, it can be a problem. In the same way that doing too much so-called aerobic training, like marathon running training, can lead you to a problem with your heart health and with your also with your metabolic health, because a lot of those athletes are also piling carbohydrates down their stupid neck every day of their lives, for example. So fitness is, people need to understand what fitness is. Fitness is several things. First of all, fitness is specific to activity. The best way to train for powerlifting is to train for powerlifting. The best way to train for Olympic lifting is to Olympic lift. The best way to train for running is to run, and for cycling it is to cycle, for swimming it is to swim. But irrespective, what is fitness? Fitness is your body's response over time to being injured slightly again and again and again and again. It's a response to your training, which is an injurious effect. How do you get a muscle to strengthen? By pushing it to its limit of strength and damaging it so that it heals itself stronger and bigger than it was before. So fitness is not a sign that you are healthy. Fitness is a sign that you have been injured again and again and again and again. And to equate fitness with health, universally, fitness is health. No, wrong. Some fitness, handy. Beyond a certain point, that fitness now becomes a liability on your long-term health. Most athletes involved in competitive sports at any level will vastly, hugely overdo it on their training and will therefore subject themselves to the actual likelihood of long-term dishealth, dysfunction, unhealth.
Okay. So you'd argue that that would essentially on paper almost shorten the lifespan in, just the grand scheme of things.
Yes. All other things being equal, yes. However, people who tend to train a lot and to be fit and think of themselves therefore as healthy, many of those people will actually outlive someone who is sedentary, all else being equal, precisely because of other things in their lifestyle, which are also associated with people who tend to be fit and therefore healthy. For example, people who are fit tend to eat much better than people who are sedentary. Does being a couch potato carrying extra weight risk shortening your life? Absolutely, yes. But also those people tend to eat badly as well. And so that will shorten their life still further. So the person who is fit and healthy will still outlive the couch potato. But that person, if they ate well, exercised to the sensible level, but no more, and who otherwise lived a harmless or blameless life in terms of their own health, would outlive both of those people without being fit.
Okay, so that being said, I know a lot of people these days, especially on podcasts and all over the internet, you have people endorsing supplements, right, to almost act as a Band-Aid or some sort of cover-up for nutrition, or rather the lack thereof.
Yeah.
Are there any, or is there any validity to any of these things in people in that, in that camp where they're sedentary and they're just not living a healthy lifestyle per se?
Yeah. Okay.
Is there anything like that can help?
Any nutritional supplement can only be helpful to a person who is deficient from their diet in that required thing, and only if that supplement is bioavailable and can be used by that person to absorb that thing from that supplement, which is case by case, from company to company, supplement to supplement, etc. The vast majority of nutritional supplements are not only worthless, some of them are outright dangerous on a case by case basis. I myself am involved in marketing a range of nutraceutical products, which are not really nutritional. They have some things in them that are claimed to be nutritionally useful, like antioxidants and stuff, fine, whatever. That's not the reason I'm interested in marketing these. The products I market because they have a nutraceutical effect, i.e. an effect which improves health in some way, rather than replaces the lack of some nutrient that is supposed to be missing from a person in some way. Are the products I market the only useful nutraceuticals in the world? No, I suspect not. I'm not going to comment on anybody else's unless I've already done the research and found out that that particular thing is either useless or indeed dangerous in some way. For the most part, it's a live and let live thing. The ones I market are brilliant. They absolutely are outstanding, and I stand behind them 100%. Fine. The only thing that's really in any significantly meaningful amount in terms of nutrition in any of the products I market is there's a collagen supplement, a collagen peptides supplement, I should stipulate, which is available through the company that I'm joint ventured with. And one of the things that's universally a problem for people as they get into their third, fourth, fifth decade of life onwards is their ability to synthesize sufficient collagen, even if it's sufficient in their diet, tends to drop. And this is a product that's formulated as to nominally half collagen units, collagen peptides, type 1 and type 3, derived from a marine source rather than the bovine source, which is much better apparently, for environmental and also for absorbability issues. And instead of trying to build up collagen from amino acids that you've eaten, or from collagen that you've eaten that's been broken down to amino acids in your stomach, this is a half collagen peptide that survives the stomach and is absorbed in the intestine and is therefore easily put together as a collagen, for example. So that can be handy. The other supplements that I'm involved in are a stem cell promoting supplement that causes a person to release their own adult stem cells, which do magics. A blood flow optimizer, which dissolves fibrin deposits from their capillary beds so that their stem cells and other things like nutrients and blood and stuff can get there. Quite handy. And an anti-inflammatory, because most people are hugely, grossly, chronically inflamed beyond what they should be. And so they're all great products that do exactly what they say they do. So I support those absolutely. But if someone says to me, should I take vitamin C every day? I'll say no. Should I take iron supplements? No, etc. So it's very much case by case.
Okay, yeah, and it sounds like maybe potentially at least the collagen peptides and the the blood, was it a vasodilator?
It clears an actual blockage. What happens when people are inflamed is that there's a protein in your blood plasma that's liquid when you're not inflamed. When you become inflamed, it drops out of your plasma and forms these spider webby-like plugs that allow plasma to flow past the plug, but stops formed elements like red cells, white cells, invading bacteria, some viral particles, and also stem cells, problematically. So if you're going to release the stem cells, which is what our other product does, you want to ensure they can get there by dissolving the fibrin. So you take the blood flow optimizer, which dissolves that plug.
Okay. So at least the collagen, it seems like it might be potentially beneficial for, let's say a power lifter or just like a weightlifter, right?
Sure.
Where you're lifting a lot of heavy things. And
absolutely.
Would you say there's efficacy in, or rather, well, so here's an anecdote, right? So I've been using collagen, not necessarily this product. I actually wasn't aware of this product until I got into your channel and discovered it. But I've been taking collagen for a little bit. I've always mixed it in with my whey protein. My understanding is it might be a little bit more beneficial pairing it with a higher leucine content protein.
Possibly.
I'm not sure how
there are thoughts around that, absolutely. However, my first question to you would be, why the hell are you taking whey protein supplement?
Well, so usually if I don't get to eat as much real food throughout the day, I'll just try to make sure that I'm capping off my protein just to, again, to fulfill that 100-gram quota that I'm trying to get in.
Does the brand of whey protein that you take have a significant amount of branched chain amino acids in it?
I believe so. Am I allowed to say the brand?
You can if you like, yeah.
Optimum Nutrition.
Okay.
I don't know if that...
I'm not aware of it. I can look it up, and I probably will later out of interest, but sure.
But yeah, I'm not too sure about the actual profile on the bottle.
Cool. And how many carbohydrates per serving does it have?
To be honest, I'm not too sure. I only look at the protein.
I would check that.
I was just looking up reviews on just the best tasting protein, because I think for me it's really just getting it down.
All right, sure.
But I don't believe this one is too high in carbs.
Okay, if it's best tasting, it probably does have carbs in it, because that's the thing that'll be tasting nice to you probably. So I'd have a look at that if I was you. Also, if you're not paying between $75 and $100 per tub of the stuff, it's probably crap.
So actually, brings up another question, right? So I usually get what they call the hydrolyzed protein isolate. Is there a difference between that and just protein concentrate or just regular, protein isolate?
Yeah, I'm not convinced about the hydrogenation idea. They will show you mechanistic studies probably that suggest, this makes it more absorbable, et cetera, all of that kind of stuff. Possibly so, possibly not so. And there may well be attendant risks that we still haven't really got to the bottom of that. What I can tell you absolutely is that the biological design is that you gain your protein, your amino acids, by eating the flesh, by which I mean muscle mass, not necessarily organs, of large ruminant animals. Not from dairy sources.
And I know a lot of people, they either off the bat, like to fearmonger or just kind of disagree, and they have the same education as myself, right? So are there anything that someone that's transitioning in that 6 to 8 week period, any symptoms of like side effects that they should look out for in terms of, I think I remember you mentioning one time allergies. If you do ever go back to eating plant material, you might find that you have
you shouldn't
severe
go back.
allergies.
You don't be going backwards. Stay going forwards. Don't be adding plants into your diet. That's not a good idea. Look, there really are no problems that you can expect to encounter in a transition to a sensible carnivorous diet over a 6 to 8 week period, except that as an athlete, there will be a decrease in your performance. There'll be a trough in your performance while your body adjusts. That is normal. That is expected. It's not the end of the world. And your performance will return to baseline or better given time. And it is a price that is worth paying for your long-term health and your body composition and your performance, because it actually will be better than it was on a carbohydrate-based diet, guaranteed.
Okay, and that brings me to the next question on a super popular supplement. I'm sure you might have been asked this a ton of times, but creatine monohydrate. What are your thoughts on that? And I do try to get in 5 grams daily. I'm not perfect, so I know I'll miss a couple of days a week.
Yeah, it is a very, very popular supplement. What creatine monohydrate will do for a lifting athlete in terms of their performance in lifting is absolutely nothing. Not a damn thing is what it will do for your performance as a lifter. What it will do is it will cause your muscle fibers to retain more water and thus look more plumped and make you look more buff than you were. That is it.
Okay. And people usually tout it as the most studied supplement out there, and that there's a ton of research. I think the Germans have a lot of the research.
Yeah.
What is that about?
It's about mechanistic reductionist studies conducted poorly with poor discipline and communicated about by the scientists that have done those studies poorly, picked up on by people involved in sports with even less education than that, who have misinterpreted it still further. At the end of the day, the take-home message is this. In terms of your performance as a lifting athlete, your ability to lift a weight or not, what creatine will do for you is absolutely nothing. Nothing at all.
And is that why it's so cheap as well? Because it's one of those, it's too good to be true supplements that everyone talks about.
I'm not really sure. It's probably it's more probably around the very small cost of producing the stuff, I would imagine. Its ubiquity makes it cheaper. Ubiquity, for those who don't know, means it's everywhere. It's all over the place. I think that probably has an impact. It's one of those supply and demand issues in terms of pricing, I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one supplement that I've been seeing a few, people online trying to market that I've just been wondering for a little bit. I know, what's his name? David Sinclair. I haven't really looked into his work, but I know he backs like NMN supplements or NAD plus, stuff like that. And I see people trying to sell their own supplement. What are your thoughts on that? I feel as though, people's opinions are kind of in both camps. That it's useless. And stuff like that.
Those kind of supplements that you're talking about there are supplements that are designed to, or reported to, increase the amount of NAD that a person will have in their cell fluids and also available to their mitochondria. These are, NAD plus is a cofactor. The more NAD you have, the more the oxidative capacity of a cell is in terms of your redox potential in that cell. Whether or not that translates to improved performance is quite equivocal, meaning that there are studies that say yes, there are studies that say no. It depends on methodology. It depends on the subject pool that was used. It depends on a whole bunch of things. I would say that the take-home message is the jury is out on whether they are useful in terms of athletic performance. Apparently, my internet connection is unstable. That's not surprising. I live in a third world country. So, yes, very, very equivocal as to whether it's useful in terms of exercise performance. In terms of longevity, which is really David Sinclair's bag, there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever on longevity in human beings that he could point to at all. He points to mechanistic speculation. He points to reductionist views of science. David Sinclair is perhaps one of the world's best known researchers in so-called longevity, but in actual fact, the number of studies that David Sinclair has been involved in that can inform us in any way on longevity, that is none. David Sinclair has published hundreds of studies, none of which are able to inform us on longevity at all. And I don't believe any of which inform us on exercise performance either, actually. I think David Sinclair is a person with a vastly successful academic profile. He is lauded as being a world expert in longevity, despite the fact that he has done no studies whatsoever, ever, that can inform on longevity. I think he is a reductionist of the highest order, which I don't think is a good thing. I think that people who are so specialized in research as he is are the wedge end, the sharp, pointy end. They are people who know a great deal about exactly nothing, in fact. I'm not impressed with David Sinclair at all, is what I'm telling you. What he has achieved is a great achievement. He's achieved fantastic things with his academic profile, and good luck to him. What he's achieved in terms of actually informing the public on any utilitarian factor of any kind, not a damn thing, is what I'm telling you.
Okay. Yeah. And I believe, so I actually caught him on another super popular podcast / show these days. And I've seen a lot of mixed reviews as well. Dr. Andrew Huberman.
Yep.
I think another one of those, again, super smart guy, it seems. A lot of people are talking about these longevity hacks, or, you know, some of them are talking about just ways to optimize, or kind of like biohack, you know, your life. And
all right. My understanding of Huberman is that he's a neuroscientist, I believe, rather than even purports to be a longevity specialist. I haven't followed Huberman's work in science particularly closely, but he is clearly another reductionist and therefore suffers the same problem as Sinclair. If nothing else, what I will say about Huberman is that he shows incredibly poor judgment. For example, he recently gave Lane Norton more than 2 hours of airtime and platform to talk about something that Lane Norton knows absolutely nothing whatever about. Lane Norton is an imbecile, plain and simple. Lane Norton is not a trustworthy source of information on any topic, even the one in which he purportedly holds a PhD, that of so-called nutrition science, tee. Lane Norton is unable to accurately tell you even what the first law of thermodynamics is, let alone how it should be applied in the field of the energetics of muscles and physiology or nutrition in any way. It's a joke, basically. And Huberman putting him on his podcast recently for more than 2 hours and treating him as if he was somebody that was knowledgeable in any field whatsoever was an incredibly short-sighted and incredibly damaging to his own credibility. So in my mind, Huberman is now also an imbecile.
Okay. And so I think for me, right, the problem for someone like me who's not as well versed in, like research, just the academic field, how does someone like me kind of sift through, good resources versus bad resources, or even how can I look for my own information and learn to interpret that for myself?
Yeah, the sad fact is that it's almost impossible for the layperson, even an intelligent layperson such as yourself. You've clearly got some intelligence. There's no way for you to tell who is a charlatan and who it is that has good, robust, sound information behind them without spending a lot of effort looking into it. And even then, if you actually don't have the training in how to read science, you still might struggle with being able to identify which statements about the science made by so-called scientists are correct and not correct. It's a sad fact, and I'm not sure what the answer to it is, other than what people ought to do is to subscribe to my channel and to binge watch all my material on repeat for as long as it takes until it gets through your head how to think about listening to what people say about science and deciding whether or not it's robust. Because really at the end of the day, that's what I'm here to do, is to try and teach as many people as who will listen how to think for yourself about science what to understand about science. And if I achieve nothing else, that would be the thing that I would like to leave the world with by the end of my lifespan.
That's actually good to know. I always like to ask people, what is your driving passion towards, whether it's this channel or just getting the info out. Seems like you kind of answered that a little bit right there. So that's good to know.
Well, that and making a living, of course. I'm here to make a living. I'm not here
for... Oh, God, just like the rest of us.
Yes,
absolutely.
Please absolutely do super chat me all your money, people. Absolutely do empty your pockets and shower your love upon me. That keeps the lights on, of course. But I'm also here to help.
And that's what people appreciate. And so, and again, going back to someone like myself, just not being well versed in the information, that I'm particularly looking for to advance my career as an athlete. What about the people that, you may not agree with? And for instance, right, like you mentioned, Layne Norton, for years, I've even followed the calorie in, calorie out model. In fact, I focused on my protein macros because I know that's something he's emphasized. And, for someone it goes back to me in that bad diet of, fast food. And as long as I'm getting my proteins, fats, and carbs, and I'm not saying macros, advocate for that per se, but when people like myself see certain results that are almost passable in their mind, it seems like another barrier for, the uneducated person to get around, like the self. So what's a good way to kind of keep yourself grounded when you run into people that, might have given you good advice based on the results that you think that you've seen versus, just identifying that it might have just been coincidence.
Yeah. Again, it's tough. It's really tough to work through those issues. At the end of the day, if somebody gives you a methodology that works, so long as that methodology doesn't subject you to too much on the negative side of the register, either in fact or in all likelihood, if it's not broken, it probably doesn't need fixing. Now, can an athlete predictably, for example, shed fat in preparation for some event or other by limiting the amount of food they consume? Yes, that will work, provided they reduce the amount of food they take by a relatively large amount to swamp any error in the assessment of the actual physiological effect of those foods. Because you can't just reduce your food intake by a little bit. The error in the estimation of actual effective so-called energy intake around so-called calories is so vast that often the error of measurement will swamp the amount of food that you have reduced your intake by to such a degree as that you don't get the result. You won't find any of these calories in, calories out so-called experts suggesting to you that you reduce your calories, so-called, by 100 a day every day, because they know that won't work. And the reason that won't work is because the error around your estimation of calories on a daily basis is more like 300 to 400, even if you accurately track everything, for various reasons, which I've covered in great detail on my channel already, so I won't bore you with them again today. Binge watch my stuff. Yeah. Right.
No, it would not be a bore.
So what you will find a calories in, calories out so-called expert will say to you, what you need to do is reduce your caloric intake by at least 500 a day. And that will have the predictable result of the loss of fat, because that will swamp any error of measurement such that you really genuinely have actually consumed, in effect, less so-called energy in effect. However, is it a good idea to reduce your caloric intake by 500 a day, every day, for months on end? Absolutely not. That will destroy your metabolism without question. that will destroy your hormonal responses, your inflammasome responses, your overall well-being, that will fuck you up good. You don't want to do that. That's a bad idea. That is bad advice from an idiot.
And so that being said, if someone's trying to, let's say, lean out or, cut versus like bulk or maintain, do you suggest doing a mass-based approach, right? With using like a scale and using like, just weighing out your food?
Not really. That's another method by which you can much more closely actually gauge what you really are taking in. Of course, then you would also need to make adjustments on the basis of the thermic effects variously of different things, etc., which you'd need to know about, and you'd need about 7 PhDs to do it, so forget it. If you want to change your body composition, what you need to do is change the way your hormonal system, your inflammasome, etc., is reacting to what you're feeding it. And the way to do that is to change around what the makeup of your diet is, not the amount of it. And in fact, if you get your intakes correct in terms of the makeup of your intakes, then your satiety and hunger signaling will become very, very accurate at determining what it is you need, and you will actually reach your goal without counting or measuring a damn thing. Because the other thing is, we've actually been moderating and keeping our body composition pretty much ideal as a species for about 350,000 years, actually. And you won't find any cave paintings of anybody with a calculator or a computer program linked into some program that tells you you've done the right thing. They just listened to their hunger signal and their satiety signaling and ate the right things, which is meat.
But for like, let's say, like an athlete, right? Like if you need to, so for instance, for someone like myself, if I know I need to put on, let's say like 4 to 5 pounds, would I eat to my, satiety and then, eat like, let's say a little bit extra, let's say just like a couple of steaks or just like steak.
Well, let's break that down. When you say, if you wanted to add a few pounds, in what form would you like those few pounds added?
So the goal would be muscle.
Right. Okay. So the answer to gaining muscle is hypertrophy training.
And that's the only stimulus for that? That's
the stimulus for muscle growth is hypertrophy training. Yes.
Okay.
And then how do you subserve that with fuel? You eat protein in the correct amount, which is 1.75 grams per kilogram of lean mass. Not lean mass that you're aiming for, by the way, lean mass that you actually have now.
Okay.
And it's plus or minus 5% of that.
The bioimpedance scale, is that something that would be a reliable tool? I think I said
not really. I mean, they'll give you an idea, and the kind of it's a coarse idea. It kind of says, this is how much protein you've got, this is how much fat you've got, this is how much water you've got, etc. Not hugely accurate, but an idea. Fine.
And then what about the DEXA scans that I know a lot of people talk about?
Very accurate.
Very accurate.
Very accurate, but also very, very expensive. And will subject your body to a dose of RADs as well. So is it necessary?
Yeah. Right.
Because the first question on any dose of radiation you're going to give your body is it necessary? Well, it should be if it isn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, would that be like, I know someone mentioned to me in high school, one of my teachers would say, you should sleep with your cell phone turned off because of, the Wi-Fi and the radiation coming from it, disturbing your sleep or stuff like that. Which, one, I don't know, is there any truth to that? Just as a little tangent, but two, a segue into sleep quality in the,
Well, in terms of the radiation from a cell phone, yes, there is radiation. It's not ionizing radiation. So it's much less immediately damaging to tissues. It's more electromagnetic frequency radiation. And the magnitude and power of such is vastly, vastly less than a DEXA scanner. Vastly less. Does that mean it's perfectly safe to sleep with your cell phone on close to your head or any other part of your body? Don't know. Is it necessary for you to do that? Do you need to sleep with your phone on? No, probably. Unless you're a person who needs to be contactable while you sleep for some reason, because it's a life and death issue, or your employment is at stake or whatever, sure. Otherwise, no. Turn the fucking thing off.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's one of those, if you don't need it, there's no need to take that potential risk, right?
That's it.
So, again, that kind of segues into sleep quality. So, sleep seems to be, from my understanding, the most important, one of the most important aspects of just living a long, healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
How can people optimize that without having to just, necessarily black out their windows and doing all these like infrared therapy? They sell these devices where you can just stand in front of red light, and I'm not sure about the efficacy, but they can be pretty pricey, So do you have any tips or cheap hacks for kind of enhancing that?
Several things that tend to increase someone's ability to get sleep and of good quality. Number one, eat a species-appropriate, species-specific diet. That being hyper-carnivore, no plant material of any kind ever, ideally. 2, ground yourself electrically for as much of the time as is possible throughout the day and night. Number 3, when the sun is below the horizon, block blue light from your eyes. Use amber-colored lenses like blue blockers for that.
So those do work. Those are effective.
Absolutely. So long as they are proper blue blocking, amber-colored lenses. If they are lenses sold to you by computer companies that say these are blue blockers for computer use that don't distort the color, don't be so stupid. If you can see blue, it isn't blocked, is it?
That's too fair of a point.
I would have thought that was pretty straightforward, but clearly people believe that these things that don't block out blue are blue blockers somehow. No, they aren't. Okay, so there's that. Undertake 30 to 45 minutes 3 times a week of high-intensity burst and repeat activity and or resistance training. Those are my top 5 things to do to increase someone's ability to sleep well. Oh, and I forgot. Yep. Cereal products. The ones I was talking about earlier and referring to, stem cell promoting anti-inflammatory. Goodness, how could I forget those? Very, very important to be as uninflamed as possible. And step 6 would be, I suggest, some form of relaxation, meditative, anti-stress and distress type self-awareness training of some kind as well.
Okay, and so some people, I know, I have a few friends that have tried doing a little bit of yoga before bed. Is that something that's a little too physical?
If it works for you?
Yeah, so it's really just personal preference, whatever gets you to that calm
anything,
state.
Yeah, anything that can get you less sympathetically activated and more parasympathetically activated, good thing for sleep anyway.
Okay. And the stem cell supplement, that product, you mentioned it can help release the adult stem cells.
That's what it does.
Is that something that like someone my age would even need to think about looking into benefits for? So I'm only about to be 28.
Okay.
It seems like something that based on what I'm understanding, that it might not be super useful for me. Is that something that would be inaccurate?
Well, I wish that were so. Well, I don't really, because it isn't. At the end of the day, the best form of prevention, the best cure is prevention. Goodness. Oh, dear. The best prevention is prevention. As you age, what happens is the telomeres on the end of the chromosomes in the DNA of every cell of your body get shorter and shorter, to a point where, depending on what tissue line we're talking about, once that tissue line has divided as many times as it's going to, it will then stop dividing. And it stops dividing because the telomeres reach a certain short length. That is the message for that cell to stop dividing. Then when those cell lines die off, those cells aren't replaced, and that's when the aging becomes obvious.
Okay. And once those are gone, those are gone.
When they're gone, they're gone. Those ones, basically. And at the end of your life, it's because you've lost so many important cell lines that your body can't actually function anymore. That's one of the reasons we die. When you release an adult stem cell from your bone marrow, and it goes around in your blood and finds a cell that needs replacing, binds to it and replaces that cell with a new one, it differentiates into an adult cell line of whatever type is needed with, get this, full length telomeres. Now, I'm not saying this product is the fountain of youth, and I'm not saying that because I'm not allowed to say it. But what I'm telling you, if you've understood what I've just said, is if you can continually encourage your body to replace cells that are damaged, worn, diseased in any way with brand new ones with a biological age of 0, it's kind of like a fountain of youth, isn't it?
One could say it definitely sounds like.
Well, one could if one was allowed to. I'm not allowed to say that. So I'm not saying
exactly, yeah. But I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, good. So if you're 28 and you'd like to stay that way longer, biologically, absolutely, then perhaps you might like to encourage more adult stem cells to be released from your bone marrow.
That's and brilliant. Then, so that seems like a pretty fair argument, right? The prevention is the best cure for everything. That being said, let's say all of your health is in check. You're getting your nutritional demands met, and you're really just kind of cruising. A lot of things that are supplements you'll see online as well are like nootropics. You see that word a lot these days.
Yeah.
What's the hype about, or is it worth looking into for people that are looking to kind of perform a little bit better throughout the day, whether that's at work, behind the computer during their training? And this is after they're already fulfilling that.
Any supplement of any kind can only be of any use if there's a shortage of that thing in the body.
So that's pretty much goes for all
nutritional supplements. Yeah, for things that are nutraceutical or nootropic or whatever, they have plus or minus, depending on a case by case basis, a good effect or they don't. The only product I'll really talk about is the one I understand very well, the one I'm joint ventured with, which would tell you something based on my background, my academic, whatever. You would suggest that this guy wouldn't put his weight behind a product if it was shit, would he?
I know, exactly. 100%.
So this is a product that does exactly what it says it does. I've checked it out very carefully. Over 13 years, as it turns out, I've been involved with this product for 13 years. 10 of those as a customer before I was involved in marketing it at all, by the way. So do I believe in it? Yes, I paid for it as a customer for 10 years. Yeah.
So, and that was actually going to be my next question, the segue into how did you get into it? You mentioned as a customer. Is there something that you were kind of trying out? Well, this was something you were obviously trying out, but did you get that wow factor when you found that it might have worked for you?
Yes.
That first time, maybe you found some sort of relief for whatever symptom.
Yes. When I started taking the product, I was 39 years of age and I was diagnosed with advanced wet macular degeneration, which I was told would cost me my eyesight in about 5 years from that point. So when I was about 45, I was expected to be entirely blind. Suck it up, is what they said. It was around about that time that I discovered this particular product because I answered an advertisement put in the local paper by the bloke that owned a previous version of the company, as it turns out, or worked for them, whatever. And they were looking for someone to train their distributors. They wanted someone with some scientific background. And so I applied for the job and they gave it to me. And I was taking the product for about a year as a non-customer. I was getting it for free from that company at that time because I was working for them. And then I stopped working for that company for various reasons. And they said to me, would you like to be a distributor now that you're not working for us? And I said, sure. And I did that so that I could get it for wholesale instead of retail. And I continued to buy it for 10 years, retail. And then I quit my job that I was working in academia permanently. I didn't want to be an academic anymore. I didn't want to be a professor of health science anymore. I didn't want to teach students. I didn't want to do research and any of that stuff anymore. I wanted, for some reason, to be a YouTube creator. Don't ask me why. So I did that, and then I thought, well, this isn't making any money. How can I make some money? Oh, there's always that stem cell thing. I could actually market it instead of just buying it. So I did. And now they pay me 5 figures a month. Every month. Passive residual income, which takes about 5 hours to earn by just talking to people about it. By saying, did you know that stem cells repair tissues and there's something you can buy that makes them work better in your body? Here's the website that you go to buy it. I'll put it up on the screen now. There it is. You won't see it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to check it out.
Cool. I'll give you the link later, and you can just go there.
Appreciate it. No, thank you so much. Cool. And I know I only have a few minutes left, so I only have a couple questions. The first one is going back to school. Not necessarily for you. It sounds like you were all set with that. You've done your fair share. But even for someone like myself, right? If you have a 28-year-old guy and he's interested in just advancing his understanding, like you mentioned before, you kind of now you mentioned multiple PhDs. I'm not necessarily looking for that, but even just trying to chip away at that iceberg, right? So is there any benefit to, would you say going back to school in terms of just getting a better understanding of, health, fitness and stuff like that?
Cool. All right. In terms of your understanding, not only is going back to school not going to be helpful for you, it's going to actually be a backward step. They will teach you nonsense. They will teach you fallacies, lies, and incompetent rubbish. Still, to this day.
Is there any reason why?
Why? Well, it's because of something that turns out to be a fact that was said to me by my first supervisor of my first advanced research degree. And he said to me, what you need to understand is that science progresses one funeral at a time. And that's how it is. Because once I plant a flag, or any academic plants a flag in the academic landscape, they now have to defend that patch of land for as long as they live. They cannot back down off that hill or change their mind or whatever without destroying their own credibility. Most people, that is. There are one or two notable exceptions of people who have changed their mind academically, and it's been good for them to do that. Tim Noakes is one of those, for example. He said, I was wrong about carbohydrates. And he was very, very wrong for many, many years. And now he's not. Good for him. But most academics, if they turn around and said, well, actually everything I've been saying for the last 20 years was wrong. I was completely mistaken. People will then turn around and say, well, what makes you think we're going to believe you now? You might be wrong again. So I've built an academic career on never being wrong. And I'm yet to experience being proven wrong on anything by anybody ever. Anything important.
That's goals.
Anything important. People have tried and they've failed because I make sure I know what I'm talking about before I open my mouth. So in terms of encouraging you to what you should do to increase your understanding, if that's the goal, then what you should do is stick around my channel, stick around my material, binge watch my videos, listen to my Q&A sessions, watch everything on repeat until it all sinks in. I will teach you how to think in a way that is the way I think, that leads you to an unassailable position of being correct about things and not making errors. If you want to join various professions and be employed by people in various professions, then you're going to need some credentials. Then you'll need to go back to school and be miseducated by those buffoons, frankly. Those are your choices. If you don't need to for employment purposes, I'd stay the hell away from school.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was truly just, I just, like reading.
Right.
And so, if there was any way that would help, I definitely would have looked into it, but I guess you just saved me a lot of money.
Yeah. You could send it to me instead. I'll take it.
Hey, see, there you go.
Or tell you what, you could join my sorrel business and become a millionaire in the sorrel business, and I'll get a small override on what you do, and we'll all be thankful.
Hey, that sounds $1 million. That sounds like the American dream these days.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think $1 million doesn't actually have the purchasing power it used to.
No, definitely not. But
Still
$1
worth
million,
having.
I just feel like
Still
I'll
worth
take $1
having.
million. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about Sorrel in the background after this discussion. And was there anything else you wanted to cover before we finish off?
No, yeah, that's pretty much all I had written down and typed out. I had some notes on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
It was good talking to you.
Likewise, good fun. I told you it would be worthwhile and that I wasn't going to swear at you and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, you're definitely a nice guy. I can confirm.
I did warn you. I did say, look, you'll find me quite pleasant. All right, my man. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being willing to front up and share some ideas. Thanks for the questions. They were great. And stick around after this and I'll tell you more about the Sorrel thing.
Absolutely.
Everybody else, you know the drill. Don't let the door hit you in the arse on the way out. Clean up the room after you. Don't leave the mess behind for the next person. See you then when probably someone will be wrong on the interwebs because that doesn't look like slowing down any time. Ciao for now. Have some Vivaldi. Enjoy it.